teachers are too busy teaching. So there's a level in between of curriculum development people that have to do that. And we certainly are putting pressure on. There are things in textbooks now that were not in textbooks 20 years ago. And that is happening. But education doesn't all happen at school, I'm afraid to say. And I'm going to hand over to Suzanne, because she's involved in policy, and maybe she can talk a bit about the question I was going to ask her a little later. How do talks, multilateral talks, discussions, policy development, how are these things actually helping, and are they helping?
Okay, well that's quite a difficult question. It depends which policies. I think you know, on the international front, we're trying to get a deal still. That's basically where we're at. Copenhagen came pretty close, and I think, you know, most people who are involved in negotiations came out of that shattered and said, well, if we couldn't get a deal with over 100 world leaders sitting around a table, how the hell are we ever going to get one? And it really has set the process back. It's sort of been another new confidence building period over this year to try and sort of see if we can't get more people to accept the accord and not just have it as a noted, whether we can work on the fast start finance, whether we can get these sort of large concepts, which are really important concepts, nailed down. It's looking like, well, I hope you all know that South Africa will be hosting the next big climate change conference for the international negotiations in 2011. And it looks like we might be heading towards a deal point at that time. It seems to go in 2-year cycles, the international negotiations. So everyone's sort of now looking towards a South Africa deal. But there's plenty to be sorted out before that, largely on finance, and as Guy was saying, how do we divvy up that last bit of carbon space that's actually left? And I mean, I can say from the UK side, I mean, they've legislated that they will already take 80% cuts by 2050 and 34% cuts by 2020, which is, you know, well above what anyone else is offering. But unfortunately, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately, but they are part of the EU as a negotiating bloc. So there's only so much that, you know, one party can push in that. But, you know, the UK are lobbying very hard for the rest of the EU to take on a higher target of 30% by 2020, which would be more acceptable to most of the other players around the table. Well, that's what, you know, they would all hope for. But it's very much I'll go as far as you'll go kind of syndrome, and that means that nobody goes anywhere. So that's kind of the situation that it is at the moment. I don't think that anyone's expecting a huge, you know, shining light to come out of the next negotiation, unfortunately. I mean, maybe I'm happy to be proved wrong, but it just, at this point, seems that there's a lot to still figure out. But maybe on domestic policy, just say that I'm really an observer of it for you know, working for the British government at the moment. But I do sit in a lot of meetings with parliamentarians, with provincial government, with local governments, and there are a lot of policies that are being formulated. There's a lot of things in the pipeline. We just seem to be at the point where it's not quite at the point of implementation, and you know, its capacity as well, and other priorities, other service delivery areas. And I don't think that, you know, people realize how much is actually being done in government departments to try and get this mainstreamed, and not just in the environmental departments, in a more holistic way. It is filtering through, but, you know, these things do take time, and there's a lot of pressure groups and interest groups at very senior levels as well, which have to be negotiated around as well.
Thanks, Suzanne. Take some questions.